Should the Miami Heat extend Jimmy Butler, number 22, the Miami Heat's fearless leader over the past 4 seasons? That is going to be the main topic and only topic on today's show. I am Nic Rohloff of the Heat Report, and you might be asking yourself, why are we talking Jimmy Butler extension? He has 3 years left on his contract. Well, it's because a little bit of a report came out from Ira Winderman of the Miami Herald, and he basically said that Jimmy Butler could seek beyond Jaylen Brown money on his next extension. And I found this very interesting because when you look at what Jaylen Brown got as a contract extension, you think of what Jimmy Butler's getting paid right now. You think Butler's a little bit of a better player than Jaylen Brown, but you also have to take account he is much older than JB in Boston. So it's fascinating to see how this will play out. We'll talk about it and break down the two players and if I believe the Heat should extend Jimmy Butler. But first, if you love Jimmy Butler like I do, I mean, all those moments in the postseason, amazing. What he's done for the Heat is truly incredible. If you like him like I do, hit that like button. If Jimmy Butler comes across this video, I want him to know that Heat Nation loves him dearly. All right, let's look at what Jaylen Brown's contract extension is, because I think that's a main part of this conversation. If Jimmy wants to get paid more than JB, then you know he's going to get a lot of money, because Brown's total extension, you see it at the bottom here, is 5 years, $304 million. It is the largest contract in NBA history. It is a massive supermax extension. And if you look at it by a year-by-year basis here, all these 5 years, my goodness, $52.4 million, then it goes to 56, then 60, then 65, and then damn near $70 million for Jaylen Brown, and that is absolutely insane to really wrap your head around, that someone's getting paid that much money just to play a game where you put a ball in a hoop. But this is what Jaylen Brown has done over the past 4 seasons to earn himself that contract extension, and he's gotten better every year. There's no doubt about that. This past season, he did make second team All-NBA. He's been very good. He actually was with Jimmy Butler on that second team All-NBA. So I'm not saying that Jaylen Brown is not deserving of a massive contract, but when you think of someone getting paid $300 million over 5 seasons, you're going to expect them to be a number 1 guy, a top 10 player in the league. And to be honest, Jaylen Brown isn't that, and he's been in the playoffs a lot, and you get paid based on what you do in the postseason. Sure, LaMelo Ball and Tyrese Halliburton got paid 5-year, $260 million rookie max extensions this offseason, and they haven't really been in the postseason, but they're young guys. Jaylen Brown's a young guy too, but he hasn't really performed in the postseason like you'd expect him to. His numbers take a dip across the board, only 19 a game in the postseason. Now, I do give him some slack a little bit because he has been in the postseason almost every year of his career. So when you're doing that at a young age, you are likely to not perform as well in the postseason as he is currently. But Jaylen Brown has a lot of experience in that postseason. Not as good as Jimmy Butler, though. And when you think of should Jimmy get more money than Jaylen Brown, in a vacuum, Jimmy Butler should absolutely get more money than Jaylen Brown. Why? Well, because he's a better player, and I would even argue that Jimmy Butler is a better basketball player than Jason Tatum. I get what you want to say about regular season, and Jimmy doesn't try as hard in the regular season, but when it comes to the postseason, and that's when real hoopers play and real basketball is shown and who can play and who can't, Jimmy Butler plays like a top 3 player in the league and certainly a top 5 player in the entire association. So I am in the belief that Jimmy Butler is better than Jaylen Brown and should get money on that level. But the question is, should the Heat do it? And that's what we'll discuss coming up here in a bit. But I want you to pick a star for me. And I kind of want and expect to see a lot of 22s in the comment section, but make it known Jimmy Butler is a better player than Jaylen Brown. Type those 22s. I don't want to see 1-7 in the comment section. Let's look at what Jimmy Butler is currently getting paid, because if you're thinking extension, I don't know why, though, because there's still 3 years left on his current contract. You've got him under contract this season for $45 million, and then next year he's under contract for $48.8 million. And then in 25-26, he has a player option on this 3-year, $146 million contract he's currently on. And I would expect him to opt in 25-26. Why? He's 36 that year. Getting paid $52 million at age 36 is very, very good. And when he's an unrestricted free agent in 2026, let's say that he don't sign him to an extension and he goes in the free agency as an unrestricted free agent. He'll be 37. 37. Are you paying someone $300 million plus on a massive extension at age 37? I don't think you are. And that is a tough decision that the Heat are going to have to make. I'll ask you guys this, and then I'll give you my thoughts and reasonings behind it. But are you extending Jimmy Butler with more money than Jaylen Brown? You just saw his contract. I let you know how old he's going to be when that extension kicks in. Are you giving him more money than Jaylen Brown on a contract extension? I'm not. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not going to do it. And I don't want this to come across as someone who is hating on Jimmy Butler or doesn't think Jimmy is worth it. But I just don't think you can pay him that type of money with him being that old. And listen, he's been fantastic with the Miami Heat since joining them in 2019-2020. He's been averaging 20 points per game the entire time, alongside 6+ rebounds. He shot pretty well from the field. The three-point numbers aren't great. He actually did shoot his career high in three-point numbers this season, 35%. Not career high, just with the Miami Heat, after it being 23-24% over the past 3 seasons. But this isn't where Jimmy Butler makes his money and makes his mark on this Heat organization. It's in the postseason, because the Heat have been in the playoffs all 4 years. Jimmy Butler has been in the 305. And the fact that the Heat have played 64 playoff games the last 4 seasons is absolutely mind-blowing. And Jimmy Butler has been the number one option on 2 NBA Finals teams, 3 Eastern Conference Finals teams. Obviously, we don't talk about 2021 when the Bucks swept us, but he has been fantastic. 25 a night, 7 rebounds, 6 assists basically, shooting 47.5% from the field and 34% from 3, while owning players like Jrue Holiday, like Quentin Grimes, like Jason Tatum, like Jaylen Brown. Jimmy Butler has been him for the past 4 seasons in the playoffs. And you pay someone like this that type of money. And to me, Jimmy Butler is also the 3rd best Heat player of all time. I know it might be a hot take, but it goes D-Wade number 1. That is undisputed. If you try to tell me it's LeBron James, sure, he might be the best player to ever put on a Heat jersey, but he is not the best Miami Heat player of all time. He is number 2, though, for help bringing 2 championships back to the 305. But I think Jimmy is there at number 3, because when you think of other Heat players of all time, Shaq, Glenn Rice, Kuechly, Alonzo Mourning, Jimmy Butler has had more success than all of them as a number 1 option. And I think that's the big part here. Number 1 option. And he has turned the Heat organization from a middle of the pack after LeBron left and Chris Bosh had the serious blood clot issue to one of the upper echelon teams in the Eastern Conference, and I will always love Jimmy Butler for doing that. So he's my number 3rd player in Heat history. But the age is a problem, and I've kind of alluded to it throughout the show already, but paying someone $60, $70 million at age 37 is just reckless, and I don't really think it is proper team management. And it's kind of my thing. It's like, I get Jimmy Butler is better than Jaylen Brown. I said that he's a much better player. Jaylen Brown's a top 25 player in the league, sure. But Jimmy Butler is top 10 and top 5 in the postseason. So why are you giving Jimmy Butler that much more money than him when he's turning 37 and Jaylen Brown is turning 26? Jaylen Brown's currently 26, gets that massive extension, and it makes sense because the Celtics are already preparing for the future as well. You're giving Jimmy Butler that money, his contract is done after that year or that extension potentially, and he is going to retire. So I don't really know if you're giving a 37-year-old that much money in comparison to a 26-year-old. But I do have some pros and cons of a potential Jimmy Butler extension, and I want to run through a couple of them. Pro, you keep a good relationship, right? Jimmy Butler is one of the most influential people in the Miami Heat right now. And if the Heat were to not play ball with him and not give him an extension, he might sour on that relationship, which is the last thing that I would want to see happen. So giving him a big-time extension, even though it wouldn't make sense team-building-wise to me, it would be good to keep a good relationship with Jimmy. A con, though, his game will continue to decline with an older age. And that is just simply the father time showing itself, right? We always bring up the phrase father time. And LeBron James has defied it, but there's other NBA stars who haven't been able to defy it. A Shaq, a Tim Duncan, who got washed near the end of their career, Dirk Nowitzki. Jimmy Butler doesn't use athleticism to beat people. He uses physicality, IQ, and shot-making ability, but it's still, he's going to decline on the defensive end, and he's going to decline on the offensive end. So giving someone that much money at that old, it's always a risky move. Pro, though, Jimmy retires with the Miami Heat. And I would hate to see him end his career potentially leaving Miami, right? Like, if they don't give him that extension, he goes into free agency in 2026 unrestricted and signs with a different team. I think all of Heat Nation would be absolutely heartbroken, and I want to see Jimmy Butler retire as a Heatle. The last con I want to talk about is that he doesn't play hard in the regular season. And then we don't need him to. As long as the Heat make the playoffs and Jimmy is fully ready to go and give 100% effort in the postseason, we're fine with that. But it's hard to pay someone $65 million when they only show up for about 55, 60 regular season games a year. And when you actually deep dive into those 55, 60 games and you're not playing 100% every game, it's tough to be justifiable in giving, I don't even know if that's a word. Justifiable, is that a word? I'm just going to roll with it. Justifying at least giving him that money and not giving that max level effort throughout the regular season. Kind of laid out what I thought about extending Jimmy Butler and why the Heat probably shouldn't do it at age 37. And I asked you earlier, are you doing it? I want to know if you changed your mind. If you originally thought you should extend them or not extend them, have you changed your mind? Type C for change, type S for stayed. I'm curious to see if I was able to sway you guys in a certain direction. I will say, though, before we head out of here, I want to make one thing clear. Me not wanting to extend Jimmy Butler is not me being anti-Jimmy. I love Jimmy Butler. He is my second favorite Heatle of all time. It goes D Wade, and then it goes Jimmy Butler. Like, that's just what it is. Jimmy, what he's done for the Heat over the past 4 seasons, taking them out of that middle of the pack range and bringing them as a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference over the last 3 seasons, and bringing the Heat to 2 NBA Finals was something that I will never forget. I hold it dearly in my heart, and as a diehard Heat fan, Jimmy Butler will always have a special place for me in the Mount Rushmore of Miami Heat players. It's just that from a financial standpoint and team building construction site, you're not going to pay someone that old that much money. That is going to do it for today's show. If you want more Heat analysis, Heat news, Heat rumors, make sure you hit that sub button because I'm bringing it to you every day. And guess what? If Damian Lillard gets traded, we'll be here for that too. So make sure you hit that sub button.